Welcome to Real Life with Let's Big Bear Begs. Soldier for help. What happens next is unbelievable. Three soldiers lowered their weapons in disbelief as a fully grown brown bear crashed through their security fence, ran straight to their commander's office, and did something no wild animal had ever done before. It bowed its head and waited. When they discovered why this 800-pound predator risked death to seek human help, even the toughest military men couldn't hold back their tears. Lieutenant Scott Parker had seen his fair share of strange events during his 15 years in the military, but nothing in his experience could explain what was happening at Outpost 23, hidden deep in Alaska's unforgiving wilderness. Their base had dealt with everything from severe blizzards to unauthorized aircraft, but a bear deliberately breaking through their defenses only to show submission. This was completely unheard of. The base was one of America's most secure facilities in the region, equipped with motion, sent ERS electric fencing, and round-the-clock armed patrols. Its primary mission was to monitor a vast stretch of wilderness bordering sensitive territories. With 15 highly trained soldiers and state-of-the-art surveillance equipment, they prided themselves on detecting any threat long before it reached their perimeter. Yet on this freezing morning, all their sophisticated security measures meant nothing against the determination of one desperate mother bear. The boss's alarms had barely finished sounding when she appeared, not with aggression or fear, but with a purpose that would soon become clear to everyone present. What unfolded over the next 72 hours would not only challenge everything these hardened soldiers believed about wild animals, but would also lead to a discovery that would shake the entire military command. Lieutenant Parker was about to learn that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from the most unexpected sources. Lieutenant Parker's first instinct was to follow standard military protocol, neutralize any threat that breached their security, but something about this bear's behavior made him hesitate. The massive animal wasn't charging or attacking. Instead, it remained in a submissive position, occasionally lifting its head to make soft, almost pleading sounds that echoed through the silent compound. The base's wildlife expert, Sergeant James Miller, quickly pointed out how extraordinary this behavior was. Brown bears were known for their aggressive territorial nature, especially when cornered. They never willingly approached human settlements unless searching for food, and they certainly never showed submissive behavior to humans. This bear was breaking every rule they knew about wild animal behavior. As the morning wore on, more unusual details emerged. The bear's fur was matted with ice and snow, suggesting it had traveled a long distance. Its paw prints in the snow showed it had circled the base multiple times before making its desperate entry. Most striking was the lack of fear it showed, despite being surrounded by armed soldiers. The bear's eyes seemed to carry an intelligence and urgency that made even the most experienced soldiers uncomfortable. Lieutenant Parker ordered his men to maintain their positions, but hold their fire. He had served in many challenging situations before, but this one required a different kind of approach. The bear's desperate action suggested it wasn't just a random encounter. There had to be a reason for such unusual behavior. The base's security cameras revealed more puzzling details. Footage from the previous night showed the bear had actually been observing the base for hours, studying the patrol patterns and movement of personnel. This level of calculated behavior was unprecedented. It was almost as if the bear had planned its approach, waiting for the right moment to make its dramatic entrance. Sergeant Miller noticed something else. The bear was a nursing mother. Her behavior suggested she had cubs somewhere, but no young bears were visible in any of the security footage. This detail changed everything. If she had left her cubs behind to seek human help, something serious must have happened. The situation became even more intriguing when they reviewed thermal imaging from their perimeter cameras. The bear's body temperature showed signs of exhaustion, suggesting she had been traveling for many hours without rest. The tracks in the snow supported this theory. They stretched far into the wilderness, following a winding path that seemed to have a specific destination. As the hours passed, the bear's behavior became increasingly urgent. She would rise occasionally, walk a few steps toward the wilderness, then return to her submissive position, all while making those same pleading sounds. It was as if she was trying to communicate something specific, trying to get them to follow her. The base's communication officer reported the incident to regional command, but the response they received only added to the tension. No other military installation. Observing the bear, Parker called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The discussion was intense, with opinions divided. Some argued it was too risky to leave the bases. Security for what might be a wild goose chase. Others believed they had a moral obligation to investigate. Especially if cubs were involved, the debate continued until Sergeant Miller shared a disturbing observation. The bear's urgency was increasing, and she showed signs of physical distress. Parker thought about his 20 years of military service. He had faced combat situations, natural disasters, and countless emergencies. But this situation was different. This wasn't about military strategy or following protocol. It was about doing what was right. Looking at his team, he saw the same understanding in their eyes, making his decision. Parker organized a small rescue team. He selected 4 of his most experienced soldiers, including Sergeant Miller for his wildlife expertise. They equipped themselves with medical supplies, emergency rations, tranquilizer guns, and survival gear. Nobody knew what they might find, but they needed to be prepared for anything before leaving. Parker established strict protocols. He set up a communication schedule with the base arranged for emergency backup if needed, and created a detailed map of their planned route based on the bear's tracks. The remaining soldiers would maintain heightened alert at the base, ready to respond if anything went wrong. As they prepared to leave, the bear's behavior changed dramatically. She became more animated, as if sensing their decision to help her distress. Sound turned to soft huffs, and she began moving toward the tree line, constantly looking back to ensure they were following. The tracking would not be easy. The winter storm had intensified, reducing visibility and making the terrain treacherous. The bear's tracks showed she had come from the northwest through some of the most challenging terrain in the area. The team would need to navigate dense forest, steep inclines, and possibly unstable ice formations. What made the situation even more complicated was the approaching darkness in the Alaskan winter. Daylight was precious and brief. They would have only a few hours before darkness fell, making their mission even more dangerous. Parker knew they were racing against time. The bear seemed to understand their challenges. She moved at a pace that allowed them to follow safely, occasionally stopping to ensure they were still behind her. Her behavior continued to amaze the team. This was no mindless animal, but a creature showing remarkable intelligence and purpose. As they moved deeper into the wilderness, Parker noticed something else concerning the bear's track. Showed she had made this journey multiple times over the past few days. Whatever was driving her to seek human help must have been desperately important for her to repeat. This exhausting journey, the team maintained radio contact with the base as they moved through the forest. Every 15 minutes, they reported their position and status. The bear LED them through paths that seemed deliberately chosen for human passage, avoiding the deadliest hazards of the winter landscape. After nearly 2 hours of careful tracking, they reached a point where the terrain began to change. The dense forest opened into a small clearing, and the bear's behavior became more agitated. She moved with increased urgency, her powerful muscles tense with anticipation. The team read themselves, checking their equipment one final time. Whatever they were about to discover, it had driven a wild animal to do the unthinkable. Trust humans as they approached the clearing. None of them were prepared for the shocking scene that awaited them. What the rescue team found in that clearing would haunt them for years to come. They're trapped in an old abandoned mining shaft, where 2 bear cubs barely moving in the freezing temperatures. The shaft, a relic from Alaska's gold rush era, had partially collapsed, creating a deadly trap for the young bears. The cubs had fallen through a hidden opening, dropping nearly 15 feet into the frozen pit. The walls of the shaft were too smooth and steep for them to climb out, and too narrow for their mother to reach down and help them. The mother bear had been forced to watch helplessly as her cubs struggled for survival. The situation was even more critical than they had imagined. The cubs had been trapped for what appeared to be several days. The mother's tracks around the shaft showed she had tried everything possible to reach them. The ground was torn up from her desperate attempts to dig, and broken branches scattered around showed she had tried to push them into the hole for her cubs to climb out. Sergeant Miller quickly assessed the cubs' condition. They were severely dehydrated and showing signs of hypothermia. The smaller cub wasn't moving much, only making weak whimpering sounds that broke the hearts of even the toughest soldiers present. The larger cub was slightly more active, but clearly fading fast. The mother bee now made perfect sense. After exhausting every possible way to save her cubs, she had made an extraordinary decision to seek help from the only creature she knew might have the ability to reach them. Her intelligence in choosing a military base with its equipment and trained personnel showed remarkable instinct. Lieutenant Parker immediately radioed the base, requesting additional rescue equipment they needed: ropes, harnesses, and a portable heating system to prevent the cubs from going into shock. During the rescue, time was critical. The temperature was dropping rapidly as darkness approached. The team wasted no time in beginning their rescue operation. The shaft, stretching 15 feet deep into the frozen ground, presented numerous challenges. Its walls were slick with ice, and years of erosion had left the structure dangerously unstable. One wrong move could cause a complete collapse, burying the cubs forever. Lieutenant Parker ordered his team to quickly set up emergency lighting around the shaft's opening. The winter sun was already setting, casting long shadows through the trees. They needed to work fast, but rushing could prove fatal. The mother bear watched their every move, her breath creating small clouds in the cold air as she shifted anxiously from paw to paw. Sergeant Miller's assessment of the situation revealed more complications. The temperature at the bottom of the shaft was well below freezing, and the cubs had been exposed to these conditions for days. The walls were too narrow for an adult to safely descend, and using mechanical equipment might trigger a cave-in. They would need to rely on their basic rescue equipment and careful planning. The team unloaded their gear, creating a careful inventory of their resources. They had rescue ropes, harnesses, emergency blankets, and basic medical supplies. Using these simple tools, they would attempt something never before documented: the rescue of wild bear cubs from a mining shaft. While their mother watched, the first step involved securing the area around the shaft. The soldiers carefully cleared away loose snow and debris, then set up a sturdy anchor point for their rescue ropes. Every movement was calculated, as the ground near the shaft's edge could crumble at any moment. The mother bear's constant presence added another layer of tension to their work. Creating a rescue harness for a bear cub required quick thinking and adaptation. The team modified their existing rescue equipment, using emergency blankets to create a secure cradle that could safely lift the cub without causing further stress or injury. The bigger challenge would be getting the frightened cub into the harness. The stronger cub, though weak from its ordeal, still showed signs of life. It tracked the movement of the rescue harness as it was lowered, letting out small whimpers that echoed up the shaft walls. The mother bear responded to these sounds with soft huffs of encouragement, somehow seeming to understand that this strange equipment was meant to help. Lowering the harness required steady hands and precise control. The team used a pulley system to ensure smooth movement, with two soldiers controlling the main line, while another handled the safety backup. The narrow shaft left little room for error. Any swing or sudden movement could injure the cub or damage the unstable walls. The most tense moment came when the harness finally reached the bottom. The stronger cub, despite its exhaustion, showed typical wild animal fear of the strange object. The team waited anxiously, watching as the cub slowly investigated the harness. Minutes felt like hours, as they hoped the young bear would somehow understand this was its chance for survival, whether by luck or instinct. The cub eventually moved into position. Perhaps encouraged by its mother's continued soft sounds from above, it settled into the makeshift cradle. The team seized this moment carefully, beginning the delicate process of securing the harness around the cub's weakened body. The mother bear's behavior during these crucial moments amazed everyone present. She remained calm, watching the rescue attempt with what seemed like understanding. Her only movements were small steps forward when her cub cried out, followed by quick steps back, as if reminding herself to trust these humans with her baby's life. The actual lifting of the cub became the most dangerous part of the rescue. Lieutenant Parker positioned his men carefully, two on the main rope, two handling safety lines, and one ready with medical supplies. The mother bear's growing anxiety was visible as her cub started moving upward, but she held her position, eyes fixed on her baby's ascent. Every inch of progress brought new challenges. The cub, frightened by the movement, began to struggle in the harness. Each twist and turn sent small showers of dirt and ice down the shaft walls. The team had to pause several times, letting the cub calm down before continuing. Any sudden movement could cause the shaft walls to crumble or the harness to tangle. The Cole was making complete survey of abandoned mining sites, securing dozens of similar hazards. They established new wildlife response procedures, emphasizing assessment and rescue over immediate defensive actions. Years later, soldiers at the base would occasionally spot a large female bear with two healthy cubs in the distance. While they couldn't be certain it was the same family, these bears never showed aggression toward humans. Instead, they seemed to share a unique, unquestioning understanding with the base. Personnel is a story of the mother bear's incredible trust and the soldiers' brave rescue spread throughout military and wildlife conservation circles. It proved that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from believing in the good of others, even those we're taught to fear. What would you have done in Lieutenant Parker's position? Would you have trusted your instincts and help the desperate mother bear. Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible, true stories of remarkable animal encounters. Complete survey of abandoned mining sites securing dozens of similar hazards. They established new wildlife response procedures emphasizing assessment and rescue over immediate defensive actions. Years later, soldiers at the base would occasionally spot a large female bear with two healthy cubs in the distance. While they couldn't be certain it was the same family, these bears never showed aggression toward humans. Instead, they seemed to share a unique, unquestioning understanding with the base. Personnel is a story of the mother bear's incredible trust and the soldiers' brave rescue spread throughout military and wildlife conservation circles. It proved that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from believing in the good of others, even those we're taught to fear. What would you have done in Lieutenant Parker's position? Would you have trusted your instincts and helped the desperate mother bear? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible, true stories of remarkable animal encounters.